To understand the different facets of our poverty, we need equally the capabilities of the synthetic mind to put together the various components to make progress on the problem. But educating the synthetic mind is beyond any particular academic discipline. It is thus difficult to find a secure place for it in the structure of the modern university, which is discipline-based. The second way to understand the difficulty of bringing together our role in becoming research universities on the one hand and engaging poverty on the other was I spoke about in the recent faculty address at the Ateneo de Manila. I referred to a book by a noted Jesuit historian, Father John O'Malley, about the four cultures in the modern Western-inspired university. The two most relevant for us are, first, the culture of research and analysis and creation of new knowledge, the culture coming from Plato and Aristotle, the culture of the modern research university. The second is focused on preparing good leaders for society, leaders for the common good, the humanistic culture coming from Isocrates and the schools. The goal of the first culture is truth and the pursuit of truth. The second is the common good. They are both needed, but live uneasily with each other. The first culture considers the second as fuzzy and non-rigorous. The second sees the first as often irrelevant to the real needs of society. The metrics for the first culture are clear: research and publications in internationally respected journals. The metrics for the second are less easy to capture: institutions and leaders who actually build the common good. Howard Gardner asks how we might educate the synthetic mind. We know how to educate the analytical mind. One approach he gives is that in addition to the dominant task of the modern research university of strong disciplinal focus and the education of future researchers, the university should also create, quotes, educational programs directed specifically at certain individuals of promise, leaders for tomorrow. Chief executives and general managers, he says, are expected to be able to see the big picture, to look beyond their own background and specialization, to understand the various components in their constituency, to think systematically about what is working, what is not working, and how goals can be more effectively achieved. Perhaps, he says, as the educator Vartan Gregorian was the former president of Brown and now the president of Carnegie Foundation, as Vartan Gregorian has suggested, maybe we need a specialization in becoming a generalist. Such a specialization, he said, would target promising candidates and devote resources toward the enhancement of synthesizing capabilities. I would imagine that an institution such as France's École Nationale d'Administration, set up by Charles de Gaulle after the Second World War, which takes candidates in their middle or late 20s, they take only 100 a year, and puts them to a rigorous multidisciplinary training for 2 years, and then assigns them to key leadership positions in the country, is such an institution. When they graduate, they post the positions director and higher in the French government, and the students are ranked 1 to 100, and number 1 has first choice, number 2 has second choice, and so on. I would like to end with tasks that I would ask such leaders to prioritize. Should the University of the Philippines or other universities or a consortium of universities in our country decide to focus on the education of such leaders? Just last week, Dr. Pepe Aveva sent me a copy of his book, Reinventing UP as a National University, Learning for Truth, Leadership, and Social Transformation. Dr. Aveva and I are now in a presidential task force on education, part of whose major focus is to work towards improving retention rates and academic achievement in our public elementary and high schools. We look forward to a day when we can truly say that every Filipino child has the opportunity to have a good elementary and high school education. At this point, we are far from this goal. The latest statistics say that of every 100 pupils entering grade 1, only 56 finish grade school, and only 30 finish high school. Achievement rates have improved for elementary schools, but achievement rates for high school continue to be an average of below 50%. I believe that social transformation is not possible for any country with such dismal basic education results. And so the first task I would give to these future leaders would be to set annual targets for improving retention rates, completion rates, and achievement scores for our elementary and high school system. Secondly, for technical and higher education in our country, my colleagues tell me that typically for every 100 interviewees for jobs in the BPOs, the business process outsourcing companies, out of every 100, they are able to hire 6. This is just one stark example of the mismatch between technical and higher education and the employment world. Our task force is working with former UP colleagues, Dr. Esther Garcia and Dr. Olive Kawili at the University of the East, Dr. Cristina Padolina of Centro Escolar University, and others to improve links and relevance between higher education and job opportunities. This is the second task I would give these future leaders: improve the links between higher education and the leadership and employment needs of agriculture, business, and industry. To end, I have often quoted a Japanese colleague who told me that they in Japan believe that a country can only march as fast as its slower members. Whatever pride the University of the Philippines and other leading universities in our country may take in the achievements we have had, the Philippines will not march at the pace of UP and the leading universities. My belief is that it will only march at the pace of the public, elementary, and high schools. And so, I end with this, that love for our country and our people invites us to do what we can to march to the future with them. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Reverend Father Nebres. What a great challenge to our university and to our educators. Our lecturer is now ready for questions from the audience here in UP Manila, as well as from those other campuses. In the interest of time, please keep your questions brief and direct to the point. For the smooth conduct of our open forum, we will entertain the first 2 questions from this audience from UP Manila. Please approach the microphone nearest you, and once you are recognized, kindly state your college or affiliation and your name, and of course, your question, your brief question. Yes, Professor.
Good afternoon, Father Nebres. Thank you for sharing with us your ideas and insights regarding the topic for this afternoon centennial lecture. There is no doubt that science and technology play a critical role in the country's development. Investing on the education and training of our present and future scientists, engineers, researchers is one priority program which, as you have mentioned, our national leaders should focus on. My question is, however, how can we reconcile this program in a country like the Philippines where there is no industrial base? An illustration is the state of the country's so-called pharmaceutical and drug industry, which is essentially a packing and repacking industry or business. As a national university, what do you think can the role and contribution of the University of the Philippines be in addressing this sad reality of having the absence of an industrial base?
Maybe first, can you identify yourself?
I'm Professor Nimia Pimentel Singbulan. I am from the College of Arts and Sciences.
Thank you. I think the point I was trying to make is that to try to do these things from the supply side, from the scientific side, is very difficult. If you look at the countries that have moved up, like India, it started from the market side, the demand side. And so I think what is really critical is to find either entrepreneurs in the Philippines or friends abroad who are willing to connect us to the markets in there, and then develop the needed industries to connect there. I think our problem has been really the disconnect between the supply side, the scientists and engineers we produce, and the industries. But almost all industries today are international. I don't know that you could just establish something competitive immediately here. And so if you were to ask my advice, what I would do probably is to try to gather UP and other alumni abroad and talk to them and say how can you help us to find our niche, say in the pharmaceutical world. Almost all pharmaceuticals today are international. I don't know that you could establish a big thing locally without any international connections. So I guess the challenge for us is to begin to think markets first, to look first for that opportunity and then see how to meet it. That's what I see.
Thank you, Father Nebres. We have a question from UP Cebu.
Yes, good afternoon. I am Regan Tuangco of UP Cebu Management Division. The question is, what do you think of an entrepreneurship development program integrated into secondary and elementary curricula that will address the need to develop, encourage, and shape the minds of our young citizens to prepare for the role of responsible employer rather than an employee, to generate jobs rather than be employed with a multinational corporation?
Thank you. I certainly am very much in favor of that. We are trying with our own students to get them to be more of entrepreneurs. We have created kind of a business accelerator for them. We hope that you can start quite young. And this entrepreneurship can be done as well in the work with the poor. One wonderful experience we have had is getting a group of our management students to do a program for the women of Payatas. It's called Rags to Riches. To make it very simple, these women just used to earn 1 peso per piece of what they had. The first thing they did was to cut out the middleman, and they made these rugs that you see in the when you were traveling. Now they cut out the middleman, and so they make 25 or 30 pesos. But the fantastic thing is they decided to connect with a fashion designer, Rahul Laurel, and he's actually created high-level pieces. So what women used to sell for first 12 pesos and then later for 35 pesos, they now sell us designer bags for 400, 500 pesos. So I think this entrepreneurship can make a big difference, and I certainly agree that that mentality should be sold, should be educated as quickly as possible. The Indians are stronger marketers and entrepreneurs than us, and I think it's something we could learn from them.
We now have a question from UP Tacloban. The question from UP Tacloban, this is